Hi again. Um, Today I've got a couple cracks in this side cover. Before I start doing the body work, I need to reinforce it a little bit. You can see right here, I've got a crack, runs all the way over to here, and one over to here, and a little hole there. And we've got a crack down here where where it bolts on. So I'm going to lay a little fiberglass inside here. I've already roughed this up with some sandpaper and cleaned it out with uh, some thinner, and I'm just going to paint in a little bit. The hole I can fill with body filler after I get this reinforced on the back. Just there's none of these things available, so you've got to do what what you can to save them. I've got some resin mixed up here, and just lay the fiberglass in there and keep putting the resin on it. So it's getting about time to do all the prep and the body work and the painting. So this project's really starting to take off here. And once I get all that, or probably while I'm doing that, I'll start with the engine work. Just try to keep it all separate from one another. This fiberglass really works pretty good in cases like this. I think I'm going to take a piece and wrap over this ear. All right, we've got the fiberglass drying here on this patch in there. This other side cover is pretty cherry. There's no real problems with it. And we're getting ready to start on the tank. That side actually didn't look too bad. This side, nah, not so much. So I'm going to pull this petcock off. This tank has already been lined. It had one small little rust through right here, and I repaired that out here with some JB Weld just so that the sealer wouldn't seep through. So it's already sealed. It's good to go in there, and I'll be able to just sand that off and paint the whole thing when I get ready to. But it's probably quite a ways from that. I'll start with a little DA action here. Well, there we go. It's about as far as I'm going to go with it. I'm not going to do the underside. It just gets some overspray anyway. Good news about this tank is it's pretty much dent free. Not like most of them I do that you got to pull dents on. There's nothing I got to pull on this one. There's a couple little spots. It'll take a little putty maybe. There's nothing that needs to be pulled. So that'll be fairly easy actually. So there we are, step further. Thanks for joining me. There's always more after you think you get them all, and more of them rear their ugly heads. Well, as usual, always mix a lot more up than you need. So we'll let this dry, and then you can start sanding it. I'm going to let this dry, and we're going to put a guide coat on, and we'll sand that to see if we've got any imperfections that we need to fill yet. I see one already. It's a little bitty dent right there. It'd be under the decal, but we'll get it. But all in all, it's looking pretty good. So we'll let that dry, and then we'll get back on it with the guide coat, sand it down a couple of times, and we may have to put another coat of primer on just to see what we've gained. Now we're going to get the guide coat on. Just a light mist of black paint, a contrasting paint. That's all it is. It's just a contrasting color so that when we sand it with a block, you'll be able to see any low spots or high spots. High spots will develop as bare metal, and the low spots will stay black from the guide coat. I just use a soft sanding block like this. You can get them at Napa or whatever. It's just, you don't want to use your fingers because you'll actually, it'll look like your fingers after you keep rubbing it. So in this case, I'm going to take some 400 grit, and I'm first going to do this dry, and then I'm going to do some wet sanding on it later on. But it's just got to get in there and do a little elbow grease, very light pressure. That way, all you're taking off is the guide coat and the very top layer of the primer. If you can avoid going through at all, that's the best thing, you know. But if you do have high spots, you're more than likely gonna sand through those. But on a gas tank, it's usually not that. It's not that way because, you know, gas tanks get dented. They don't get mountains put on them. Unless it's an indirect damage from a dent. Then that makes it a high spot on both sides of the dent, or around the dent usually. It looks like it's going to do pretty good. You can still see the orange peel from the paint. I usually go until I can't see that anymore, so I'm leveling that down. And of course the wet sanding works better. It's just a mess because this time of year I can't do it outside, so you end up with water all over the floor. But gas tank and a side cover is not a big deal, so it really looks like there's not going to be much here. I think this side over here was the one that had some, that I could see a dent on. You could use a more aggressive sandpaper, but then you've got to take the sanding scratches out, so you're just better off starting with, you know, 320 or 400 and just stay at it a little longer. Yep, see, you can see a little dent right there. It needs to get filled yet. So the wet sanding begins. It actually works a lot better than the dry sanding. Let me kind of show you where we're at so far. You can see this side of the tank. There's high spots here where I've sanded through, and then there's low spots here where the black still is from the guide coat. And then on down here you can see some orange peel yet from the paint, but that'll all come out. So my plan here, instead of using more filler, I'm gonna use more primer. I'm gonna put another couple coats of primer on, sand it again. These will slowly go down. I'll probably have to go back and put another one on, but it's just easier to take care of it with primer than it is with putty. You put putty on there and you've just got so much more sanding that you've got to do. So I just try to avoid it unless I can't. If they're just too deep, they're too deep. But a high fill primer is really your best bet. And you kind of, as you're sanding this, you want to change how you sand it too. Go crisscross it, sand like that for a while, and then do it lengthways. Just gives you a more uniform job that way. Well, we're getting ready to put the top coat on. Give it a last wipe down with the tack cloth. Had a little problem on the first time around, so had to reseal it. Not so much on the side covers, just the gas tank. And it was actually just around the filler. I think it got too wet around the filler, and that's what caused some problems. So try to take it a little easier today. Alright, we'll stop there. That's the first coat. All right, second time around here. right, let's take a look at our paint job here. It's not an exact match, but I think it's going to be pretty close enough for me. It's really hard to get exact paint for these bikes. I used a Ford color on this, and I think it's extremely close.